The biggest single-day jump in oil prices in 6 years. Why? Well, new explosions reported in Iran as the U.S. and Tehran trade strikes for a third straight night. At 4 p.m. Eastern today, the United States says it will resume its naval blockade of ships going to and from Iranian ports. President Trump says the U.S. will become the guardian of the Strait of Hormuz. He also announced plans to implement a toll, charging 20% of the value of cargo on ships as a reimbursement to the United States. That is in direct contradiction to things that his vice president, the Secretary of State, the Secretary of Defense, the Secretary of Treasury have all said. Let's get to CNN's Betsy Klein at the White House for the latest on what you're seeing this morning, Betsy.
Well, the White House clearly watching those gas prices very, very closely with no signs of de-escalation for this conflict. The U.S. launching a third consecutive night of strikes across Iran responding in kind with attacks across Gulf states. But the Strait of Hormuz, that critical oil thoroughfare, continues to be the main point of contention here. Prior to this conflict, no one had full authority over this waterway. Iran now using it as a key point of leverage as President Trump announces that he will reimpose that blockade on all ships traversing to and from Iranian ports. He also says that there will be a 20% fee for all commercial vessels going through the strait that he says is for the U.S. provided security in that very dangerous area. Now, officials have previously said that it's really unclear if this can work. Secretary of State Marco Rubio has flat out questioned whether this comports with international law. President Trump himself had previously said that it's an international waterway and he didn't want tolls. But as we think about a path forward to this conflict, I just want to draw your attention to recent comments from President Trump about this memorandum of understanding. That is that now defunct peace agreement signed just about a month ago. When he signed that agreement, the president touted it. He said that it was an agreement that achieves everything he set out to accomplish. He pointed to Iran never having a nuclear weapon, the Strait of Hormuz being open, as well as ending this conflict. But listen to what he said about that memorandum of understanding just yesterday.
It didn't look. Memorandum of understanding when you're dealing with sleazebags don't mean much. And they don't mean much when you're dealing with honorable people, too, because it's a memorandum of understanding. It doesn't mean much. And I said, why are we even, it's a standard tactic in the U.S. that you go to a memorandum of understanding and then you go to the deal. I said, just go to the deal first. But you know what? It was sort of a test, and they weren't there.
Those comments raising major questions about the strategy going forward. And all of this comes as President Trump has formally notified Congress that the U.S. military has resumed action against Iran. He says that that action will be limited.
We want to start charging people to go through international waterways. When you hear things like that, I mean, is this just that, I don't know, is it just incompetence? Is it just that Trump and his team are just really not on the same page, or that Trump wants to change the status quo of how the world works?
Well, I think more than anything else, it's Trump making things up as he goes along, which is very much on point with him, which is very much part of the brand. He was asked a question, he needed to come up with an answer, and that's the one he came up with, which is pretty consistent. Look, here's what it takes. Quite aside from 20% is far more than even the Iranians are charging. Those are very, very large tankers. When you say 20% of the value of their cargo, depending on what they're carrying, let's say it's oil, let's say it's at current prices, we're talking about $70, $80 million. Iran wants to charge $2 million. Right. So if you're a shipping company, who would you rather pay? But anyway, that's aside.
The art of the deal.
Let's set this aside.
Sounds like the
what
tariffs.
Does it take?
Exactly.
What does it take for the United States to get into a position where it can say we are the guardians of the strait? What it takes is to have military control of both sides of those waters, which means putting boots on the ground in Iran, controlling the Iranian territory overlooking the Straits of Hormuz, which means putting, by the administration's own calculations, which means putting enormous amounts of American blood and treasure into a full-fledged war. You can't, at the one side, say we're not going to have a full-fledged war, we're not going to put American boots on the ground, and also say we are going to control the state. That square into that circle simply will
and
not
as we have learned, Emily, I mean, if controlling the strait were so easy, we would have done it by now, and we haven't.
Yeah. First of all, we will agree right now. I literally think Trump made that up on the phone call. You could tell he just was like having a silly time. I know. I also want to point out, this is just being like technical here, Vance and Rubio, I'm not saying they had discussed this by any means, are talking about international waterways. Now,
they were talking specifically about the Strait of Hormuz in those clips, yes.
So I laughed at this, but if I'm being completely honest, I think it's a huge threat to the entire world that Iran can just decide when or when not to open up the Strait of Hormuz.
Totally.
So personally, again, as an American, I like to be on the winning side. I wouldn't mind. Second of all, I don't know why this just reminds me of the Panama Canal.
You wouldn't mind what?
If America controlled the strait.
But
Here's the thing.
I'm sure no one
he's
would
not
mind.
being serious. I don't even think he's being serious. I'm saying if somehow there's a tangible way that it can be done, I think that will be a massive plus for our economy. I think most of Panama's GDP is from the Panama Canal. I mean, if we can have wait, you're telling me if we can't have the Strait of Hormuz, you wouldn't take the Strait of Hormuz?
Girl, yes, but how are we going to get it?
We'll figure that out.
No, at this point. In all seriousness,
is
there anything about? No, I'm not saying that taking the strait is a bad thing. What I'm saying is, at this point, in this execution of this war, it's done. It's not done. Do you actually think that there is a plan from Donald Trump to get us out of this situation
right now, this minute?
Yes.
Actually, yes.
Okay.
After
I have a
hearing
bridge
him speak
in Brooklyn.
today,
I want to tell you because.
I don't know how much
You're
the rest
too
of
smart
the world.
For that, Emily.
No.
You're too smart for that.
Everything Emily just said should make us appreciate Obama's deal a lot more because without depleting,
that's an oxymoron.
Listen, without depleting our missile stockpiles and without letting them gain control of the Strait of Hormuz, we were able to accomplish a deal. We are now 135 days into this war that was supposed to be 4 to 6 weeks.
Obama's deal would be ending right now.
100 days. There was a phase 2.
Is in trouble.
There was 100 days ago a tweet from Trump where he said unconditional surrender is what we're going to get from Iran. Since then, they still have missiles. They still fund their proxies. They still have the nuclear capacity, and the regime has not been changed. So our generation is bearing the brunt of this cost. We are bearing the brunt of this war cost, and our debt is already massive. The Obama deal did not put us into debt. Okay, what do you mean? Can I ask you, what concession have we gotten from Iran so far? Horace, what concession have we gotten from Iran so far?
You know who the biggest critics are of Obama's plan? It is the Middle East region. All of those partners sitting around, they criticize
the partners that now have to pay $300 billion to Iran, the
Regardless
Gulf
of what
allies?
They have to pay, they asked for relief from what they called a very terrible plan. So when you go around saying it was so great and you outline it.
I'm not saying it was great, but they are begging for relief right now. I'm saying it's better than this. Horace, can you name one concession we've gotten from Iran?
Now.
Can you name one concession?
Actually, Horace, I will say they are not really saying a whole lot of anything right now.
Yeah, they're saying privately.
And also, let's just be clear. This past week has been really terrible for those allies. Bahrain has been put under fire. U.S. military facilities in Kuwait, Iran claims that they're targeting the UAE, other Gulf states. It's pretty bad right now in the region.